Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is August 12th, 2024. You're listening and watching the Daily Ass Show, and we are live as always. And as you can see today, we're going to be talking about strawberry. Is it just Q-Star? Is it something sweeter? What does Sam Altman mean when he keeps trolling us on X? And what are all the other things coming out about it? Because God knows over the weekend, there's been a lot of speculation, blocking of accounts, drama, all the fun things that go along with it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. With us, we have Beth, Andy, Junmi, and I'm Brian. And we'll see. Yeah, I was suspecting maybe see Carl here for this one. We'll see if he can jump in. I know it's the first day of school where I live, so that might also be going on in other parts of the world, I am sure, as kids go back to school. So that's what's going on my side of the world. How are you guys? How was your weekend? And, who feels like they want to just dive in on strawberry? With that said, whoever does do that should really try to give as much of a background on this possible, because of course we don't expect all of our audience to know all the background that has happened since we talked about Q-Star and everything else.
I think we're all looking at Andy. Andy, are you looking at Andy?
Andy, are you ready? You're on mute, Jimmy. And Andy, you're on mute. Good start to Monday. We're there.
Okay. Well, silence is golden. So let's start with the idea that LLMs are a deep neural network that has been trained on a large corpus of data, and they are predictive engines, right? You put in a prompt, it's a very sophisticated natural language prompt, and it generates a very sophisticated natural language response. But at the time that you put that prompt in there, the model is fixed. It is possessed of all the different weights at every level of its deep neural network, all those hidden layers, in some cases, billions and billions, 500 billion parameters. All of those are set. And when you put your prompt through, it just flows through that thing and out comes the response. Reasoning in a human mind is a little different from that. And what we're trying to do as we approach artificial general intelligence is we're trying to get to a place where machine intelligence, like a large language model, can do some of the fantastic tricks that our plastic mind can. And I use the term plastic there specifically because our outputs aren't fixed. We can stop mid-thought and go, wait a second, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go a different way. And if I think about it this way, I come up with a very different result. And now I'm going to think about that for some more. Ruminating is the term for it, until I come up with a different response than my initial reaction was. So a large language model as it stands today is not reasoning per se. It is just reacting to the tokens that are fed into it and spitting them out. It's spitting out its response to that. So the next phase of this is expected to be able to do something on this scale of approximation to a human intelligence that goes beyond just convincing natural language responses to reasoning. And reasoning is what we think that this new release that's coming from OpenAI called Strawberry is going to do. And not only is it likely to possess new and very impressive reasoning capabilities, but it's going to be founded, we believe, on an algorithm called Q-Star, which is STAR, self-taught reasoner. And that evidences this idea within our own plastic capabilities, which is we can learn in the process of thinking. So we're not fixed. We can teach ourselves things through abstraction and analogy and so on, and then actually come up and create new thoughts in the process of thinking. So the self-taught reasoning algorithm approximates that in a very rudimentary way, we believe, not artificial general intelligence yet, not human reasoning capabilities, but the teasing that's going on in the background is probably because, as profoundly impressive as large language models are today, this new Strawberry release, which we think is on the LM-SIS arena, right now as anonymous chatbot. We think that's the one that's playing there now just before it's being released. That one is showing more capability when it comes to reasoning problems. But remember that in the arena, it's just humans putting problems in front of it. And there's not a sophisticated test of what real reasoning represents, but human evaluators of that on the arena are saying that this anonymous chatbot, which we believe is Strawberry, which we think is a self-taught reasoner, all of those things we believe are going to be released soon. And then we'll need to really evaluate and test whether this is really a reasoning machine intelligence. And I have some things to point out about there are some tests out there for reasoning that are anticipating the development of models that can do this kind of thing.
Before we get into that, Andy, that's a good start. And before we get into that, I want to point out a couple things. Number one, we did do a full episode on QStar way back on episode 85. That would have been 7 months ago, and I can get you the actual date. But the title of the show is "What is QStar? Unraveling the Mystery of Open AI," and it's episode 85. So if you want to get a deep understanding, or our best deep understanding of what we felt like QStar was at the point, because then we're bringing back up this topic and we're saying, well, is Strawberry QStar? Was QStar something totally different? Was QStar even really a thing? Right? There was not a whole lot of necessarily confirmation, but it's come back around in sort of this, AI news cycle, if you will. So I wanted to, I just saw myself without hair. That was shocking for a second as it came up on the other screen for that episode. I forgot that I've grown out my hair. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is that, what I wanted to say, Andy, on the point of it being evaluated, just like maybe 2 days ago, and I'm just going to bring it. I'm not going to bring it up on screen, but I just want to make sure I'm confirming. Yes, the Neuron. Neuron is it's a newsletter that all of us, I think, read or we have read or whatever. It's a great resource, just like a lot of them, like AI Breakfast and other ones. But they did a nice little breakdown on their August 12th. Oh, this is today's, excuse me, on Strawberry. And they cited quite a few different places where both they had gotten the anonymous chatbot to work as well as others. So the Neuron had tried it asking for reasoning about how to explain pi, and you can see the before and after of that. I would say the anonymous chatbot gave a better answer. Does it show reasoning? Does it show this higher level order system, level 2 thinking from OpenAI? I'm not sure. But then they do go, and I like this, they do go on to show that there's many people who feel like it isn't necessarily better from their experience, from the prompt that they put in, that in some cases it performed worse than other models. There's quite a few people who pointed out from the Neuron that they felt like it still could not do basic math. And I'd be curious to know what any of you guys, not just Andy, think about math, is because I ran into this. Like, what prompt do you put in to prove or disprove whether you feel like this is in fact a higher order, a higher level? Is this reasoning? Is it math? Is math where we should start with this? Or is it like big, deep thoughts that a human would do better at? And the answer is I don't know. So I'm just curious what you guys thought. If you were able to use the anonymous chatbot today, how do you test it?
I'd say I like math as a general test because it tests both accuracy, which I think is always been a lacking point for LLMs in general, right? It's all current LLMs are all about guessing what the next probable statement's going to be, or the next probable word and things like that. But math shows that computational factor, and it has to be accurate. If the number after 7 is not 8, then we run into problems. So I think that's why that test gets thrown around a lot, is because it tests on multiple levels. I do find it interesting, your proposal about doing the more complex, like philosophical issue and things like that. But again, the way they seem to be built, it would be more about how to explain a proposed situation, right? As opposed to just regurgitating what it thinks people have answered to your philosophical question.
Math is a good example too, because it has order of operations. A complex math problem has to be done in a certain sequence in order to get to the answer. You can't jump to the final step. You can't intuit the result. There's intermediate steps. So it requires a process which is called in AI chain of thought reasoning, which breaks down a process into multiple steps. So math is a good example of that, and therefore a good test of whether a large language model is capable of doing complex multi-step reasoning.
There's a couple tests that I was doing using LIMSYS. It was hard though, because it's you have to put the prompt in, then you have to wait, and then you have to ensure that you actually get the model. So you would stay there for a while, putting the same prompt over and over and over and over again. Yeah. And so what I did was I asked Gemini, ChatGPT, and Claude to give me, I explained what I was trying to do. I'm testing reasoning. And then I want them to give me a reasoning problem that all current frontier models cannot solve, but future frontier models may be able to solve from a reasoning perspective. So give me a prompt and the explanation and the like what the answer is, plus why they chose it. And so I would put that prompt into the battle arena and just kept going and going to see what the answers were. And what I found was it seems anonymous for the most part. Explained it a little bit better whenever it was put up against something else. Now, it's sometimes tough because you're putting it against Gemini Flash versus anonymous. I would imagine that would be better reasoning than that. I never got it to go up against Sonnet. So it'd be Sonnet versus, I never got that battle. So that's the thing. I think from a business use case, the one thing that I keep trying, the first test I always go to, and I really like this, and this is not a plug, but so Chatbase just put up in their third-party bot comparisons, so you can compare the models against each other on a single assistant that you created. So when you're putting it in, one of the tests I like to do is how long can it follow up questions, and can it take a set of data, and then, now you won't be able to do this with anonymous just yet, but can you take a set of data and then not just retrieve the data, not just analyze the data, but also make recommendations based on that analysis that you just did? So for example, a client would be like a drone company. The question would be, hey, how much does this drone cost? Cool. How many batteries would I need if I was a corn farmer trying to spray this? Okay, that many batteries. Okay, now I have 5 employees who are using this drone. How many, like, it just, I try to go deeper and deeper into what like a business use case would be to see how good it is. And actually, in most of my testing, Sonnet does way better than GPT-4o as it's presented. I don't know what Chatbase, if they're using the latest version, but that from a business perspective, that's the kind of reasoning I'm kind of wanting. I don't know about the math perspective. I don't know, like, I would assume that if it does really well on certain math problems, it would also translate into real world reasoning examples, higher level reasoning examples. So that's the kind of some of the tests that I was running on it.
So one of the things that that you're asking it to do in that kind of thing is multi-levels of logic. And just to go back for just as a reminder for all of us, and go back to our viewers who are a little newer to this, large language models don't actually code things as words. They code things as tokens, which is part of a word often. And in fact, strawberry is 3 tokens, right? So one of the jokes about large language models has always been that it doesn't accurately count the number of R's in the word strawberry. And one of the reasons that that is likely true is that it's across 3 tokens. So it doesn't actually have R's in the whole thing. That needs to be put together, and then it has to do math, which is less predictable in terms of the next word, right? Like if I ideally, if I ask you a math problem, you give me the right answer. But that's because you're actually coming up with the right answer. Large language models outside of coding, like it can write a Python program that can do math and then give you that right answer. Large language models are doing prediction, not math in their native function. So when we're asking for multi-levels of logic and reasoning, we also need to be aware of the token manipulation that's happening on the back end. That's getting stored and then put back together, and then a double check or a triple check to see if that's right.
There was actually, just to follow up on that, there was actually a post by an OpenAI, you think researcher or dev, explaining Strawberry on why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's also based on how it's chunked and how it's re-put back together. And so it may look at whether it's chunked together, how it's chunked together, and where the R's are located. He had a really, I can't find it, but he had a really good post on why it works sometimes, why it doesn't. And so a lot of people have been saying, oh, it works. But then sometimes when I test it, it doesn't. So it still says 2 R's. So it's very interesting, but there was a really long post. It just came out yesterday of really good explanation of why it actually does that and where the expectation is going into the future. And that was responding to a Strawberry post with a strawberry in it. So I don't know what that is. It's just extra. I don't know if it's an all big one troll for everybody.
The neuron also brought up the word Mississippi, and same concept. How many S's in Mississippi? And honestly, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together with tokens. So thank you, Beth, because that connected it for me when I was reading that. I was like, oh, that's an interesting use case. But now that you've explained it, it makes way more sense to me. But the not only were they asking how many S's, they were asking for the positions of the S's in the word. And same thing that Carl just said in the anonymous research, I forgot what it's called again. That one. Sometimes it hit it and sometimes it didn't. And these are the kind of things that AI can trip up over that, probably a 5 to 7 year old would find no problem figuring out. They're going to count through the word because we're reading the full word. Now, you guys have probably all seen the studies too, though, that our brains don't need the letters in the right order to read the words. Have you ever read the sentences where all the letters are jumbled? I think the rule is except the first letter has to be, like, if it's Mississippi, it has to be an M. That might not be a great case, but you can read full sentences. And it's because our brains don't literally read every letter in order. We also chunk things up and make quick assumptions because our brains are trying to quickly get to the end result. What's the idea of this sentence or whatever? So it's not that we do it holistically differently, but it's something that humans would find, fairly easy after a certain age. And this is just a good example of the complex reasoning, or Andy, as you pointed out, we don't think linearly as an LLM is maybe expected to do. I may start talking about this point, see the other 4 of you start yawning, and pivot my own sentence based on the idea that you guys look incredibly bored about the word Mississippi, right? So we do that as humans. We just do it automatically. Oh, geez, I don't know. I'm looking out on facial. An LLM can't do that. I don't know what that looks like, but that's the limitation. So when we get to this next level reasoning, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Now, one of the things I do want to bring up on this conversation are sort of getting into either you can call it trolling, you can call it the people just making bold claims, and there's a lot of that going on X, on old Twitter. So I just want to bring up 1 or 2 because Carl, you shared one yesterday, and you rightfully so. You said in our Slack channel, I have no idea if this is true. but here's some of the things that are being put out there. And then a follow-up by a guy named Jimmy Apples, which we'll talk about that as well. So let's bring that up. And then I would love to hear your guys' sort of take on this. I'm going to share the whole window so we can just bounce back and forth. Okay, so that's actually not the one. That's the one where Jimmy Apples, well, let's start at the beginning. Sam Altman on the 7th, so last week, posts this picture where he says, I love summer in the garden and it's strawberries. This kicked off a whole new level of conversation of, is strawberry coming? Is it already here? By the way, some people, Neuron pointed this out too, some people already believe that there's been some significant updates to ChatGPT 4.0 and that we may already see some of this. This would not be unprecedented. We saw this with browsing as well, where actually updates were made 2 weeks before Dev Day. And there was a lot of us saying, this is different, this has changed. And they never really announced it. It just came with updates. So there's a lot of this, has some of this already been deployed and we're not necessarily picking up on it? Or is this going to be announced this week? So that brings me to this other post. Now, this is from I Rule the World MO. And this, I don't know. You're smiling, Beth or Carl. I don't even know how to explain this because I don't get deep into the Twitter world. I rely on you guys, as I always say. But this is it's a bot, it's a person, it's somebody with inside knowledge, or it's somebody who's just trolling and has no knowledge. And I'm not claiming I know one or the other. Lots of people sometimes think it's Sam himself, whatever the case is. And he put out, or this person, I should say, put out this post talking about what's coming. Now, if you're to believe any of this, this is coming out this week. Strawberry would be. And that a GPT next, or if you want to call it X, it's called internally, they say, allegedly it's called X or 5 or somewhere, that would also be, it's also ready, but it's not going to be deployed because, as this is saying, even though it's been through red teaming, they can't quite figure out how to make it safe because it's so good that it's going to cause problems and there's other issues that go along, and it just generally may not be safe to do. This is considered to be a leap of like 1 to 4. There's a lot of different variations there. So there's a lot in this particular post talking about what it will do. I just want to bring this up, and maybe Carl or Beth or Junmi, Andy too, but like, what's your take on this? Do you believe any of this? Is this just trolling? Is this just made up? And then, to just follow it up, somebody else that a lot of people follow on Twitter has this post. It had to be done with that particular account blocked. So how do we want to unpack this? Is there anything here that we can really dig into more as far as strawberry?
I do want to point. Okay, go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay, well, I was just going to make a quick comment that the obvious hype train has left the station and is chugging along. I think OpenAI and Sam Altman have a great way. They have discovered, or they are implementing, their fantastic way of getting that train moving faster and faster, because it's what everybody's been talking about in this space for at least the weekend, right? Since last week, really. And so I think that's what it mostly is. Right. I'm sure there's a lot of, hey, I found out some information, so I want to share it kind of thing. But it's all speculation. There is no guarantee, though I will commend Sam on if he is leaking information, he's doing it in the right way where he can clearly deny that he was saying anything. I just posted a picture from my home garden. I didn't mean to talk about this thing.
But Sam did respond to this account when this account, the I Rule the World one, said, well, something about welcome to level 2. How does it feel? And Sam responded, it feels great, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. So,
oh, well, yeah. Once someone else posts something, he's simply replying.
Right.
It's all the safe way to keep it going. Though I do want to throw it to Carl because I think he's got a little more in-depth analysis. For me, it's just, okay, this is all icing. It's all part of their process. And we'll find out in a little bit.
So, before you kick it to Carl, though, Jimmy, just curious, is Strawberry coming this Thursday based on this post?
You know what? I got a 50-50 chance on this. I'm going to say no, because sort of what you were talking about earlier about the problems that they're running into, right, with the red teaming. Because recently we also saw a release of their red team results regarding advanced voice mode, right? And one of the issues they ran into is they had a situation where they did some testing and the model literally cloned the voice of the user and started speaking back to them, in that voice. And so that's a no-no, that's unauthorized. So that wasn't supposed to be happening. So I imagine if they are having those similar issues, they're going to want to slow the release on that. I know some of you've gotten access, but might be a lackluster response to that, apparently. But that might be a key factor in holding it off, anyways, or for mass.
Just to capitalize on that, prior to the masterclass in hype that I Rule the World MO is teaching us all, there was speculation that voice mode is using the more advanced model, that it's not 4.0.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I mean, listen, I've said it. I said it in the newsletter. Subscribe to the newsletter because you'll get these other takes on it. I didn't necessarily say it in the show, but I am the first person to say, if you want a really good advanced voice model, go use Poe. It came out over a year ago, and in my opinion, it's better than the advanced model of current GPT. That's not this show, but come at me. I'm ready for it. And also,
I would disagree because I have the voice mode too. But I want to actually just jump on the whole strawberry perspective. I think so. There's a couple things too. One is a bunch of OpenAI employees who are on X are tweeting these things out, right? Posting about, responding to, posting strawberry pictures. I don't know if this is the greatest, whatever they're doing. I also think going from a pure marketing perspective, and you can't really do this for any other brand, but this is genius if this is your go-to-market strategy. Outrageous that you can pull this off and everybody's posting about a strawberry, which I would think Google should have done with their kind of releases because they have a whole bunch of desserts. Remember, their OS is a bunch of desserts. But I think the key thing is, it's funny because if you actually go into the I Rule the World MO poster, the thing is, the expectation is not on Thursday, it's tomorrow. So again, 50-50. I'm going to say no. I'm going to do the 50-50, but I'm going to say yes for tomorrow. No on Thursday, yes tomorrow. And I have no clue. I also think it's the whole like getting a lot of like OpenAI employees to post about it. I don't know, but at the same time too, you can't ignore that there are two actual chatbots in the under Limsys. One is the sus one, and then the other one is anonymous. Love the sus one. So, and then there was one point, it was like GPT-4o mini, GPT-4o, and this could be GPT-4 large, and it's part of the whole post that I Rule the World. So funny enough, because we're talking about it, there's a lot of people who are going to go to that poster. Like, I think it's gotten 0 to 20K pretty quick. I think now, 23.6K followers. It went pretty big. So everything that Andy talked about, I'm just excited on to actually see, because I think the reasoning part is, remember those 5 levels that OpenAI provided. The first one is chatbot. Second one is reasoning at a PhD level. And then there's agents, and then there's innovators and organizations. The thing that's interesting about that conversation was that if AI has the reasoning capability of at PhD level, then wouldn't agents, innovators, and organizers, wouldn't you have that already if it can reason that way? So that there's some people who have said that's what's going to be. Like, if you have reasoning, then everything else just falls into place. I don't know. You have to, again, test it against math, test it against real world scenarios. You're going to get people are saying it still doesn't solve whatever it is, but I guess we'll all have to wait this week. If not,
whenever it comes out, there
Yeah.
is an existing test out there that it'll be applied to that is I want to talk to, and I'm going to show you a screenshot of what the test looks like. But it's called ARC, for Abstraction and Reasoning Corpus. It was developed by Francois Chollet. He's a French software engineer and AI researcher at Google. And it's about, his focus is on the application of formal reasoning, abstraction, and how to achieve generality in artificial intelligence. So this is the guy at the cutting edge within Google, and he built this test a few years ago. And it's based on the idea that a demonstration of reasoning needs to show capacity for few-shot abstraction based on some core knowledge. So with very few examples, it's going to be able to generalize and abstract and apply a thing. So now, just last month, no, 2 months ago now, because we're in August, in June, Mike Knoop, who is the head of AI at Zapier, and Francois Chollet announced a big prize for accomplishment in this ARC test. Okay, the $500,000 grand prize. There's a total of $1 million out there, but there's a $500,000 grand prize for any program that can score 85% or higher on 100 tasks in their private evaluation set. You can't pre-train on it, but there are training sets and evaluation sets that you can experiment with. But the one that they keep behind the scenes, that's the one you got to use, and you're limited to 12 hours of runtime. You can't access the internet. So it would mean that you couldn't apply Strawberry to it while Strawberry had access to the internet. You'd have to containerize it and put it against this test. Okay, so let me show you a quick picture of what some of these tests look like. Here we come. Okay, so this is mostly visual abstraction, okay? And this is one example of one of the test models, or not test models. This is the training set model. And you see that you give it an input like the ones on the left. And what we see on the screen, by the way, for those of you who are just listening, is there are square blocks, and in that there are multicolored, it's a grid. That block is a grid, and then inside that there's these different multicolored blocks, blue, red, and yellow, of different sizes and shapes. And then there's a transformation from the input one to the output expected based on whatever the logic is of that transformation. And then it gives you a new input that's not like the original input, and you have to say what the test output is. Okay, so I'm going to just leave that there and stop the screen share. That's the way the test is run. Okay, how good are humans at this? Humans can solve most of those evaluation sets without any previous training. And NYU tested Mechanical Turk workers on 40 of the training set problems, and 84% of those humans got each task correct. However, large language models like GPT-4o and the rest, without a lot of human intervention like massive prompt engineering and different applications, they score only 10% or so on the training set. They don't get abstraction and reasoning. Now, since 2023, when a team called Minds AI scored 34% on the test, that team has remained at the top of the leaderboard, gradually improving their method. And right now, as this is going on, they have the first place with a score of 43%. Now, will Strawberry hit 85% and win the $500,000? Well, to get there, it has to have self-improvement. Like an advanced model should be able to apply knowledge and abstractions to iteratively create and test multiple and novel approaches to the task. And it also has to show chain of thought reasoning. And so I'm excited because there is a test out there that humans can do easily. Large language models can't do it all. And maybe Strawberry can finally show the ability to ace the ARC test.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, go Brian.
No. I'm impressed. That's just super cool. I'm glad you shared that, Andy. Because I think I like that there's something that we can hang a hat on, so to speak, for lack of a better term. And to just show, like you said, that the people who are putting everything they have at this currently are at that 40%. Now, Ethan Bollock just put out his newsletter this morning, and he was just pointing out the whole point of this particular week's newsletter was just to show how far we've come in 21 months, I think it is, the time frame. And of course, it's both in the mid journeys and the LLMs and things like that. But it goes to point out to what you're saying, which is it was 30, it's 40, it's speeding up. Is Strawberry or QStar or one of these reasoning models the next iteration of that? I mean, I think we all agree with this. I wouldn't even we're all kind of talking about OpenAI, but we also keep talking about how just freaking good Sonnet is and what Anthropic has out there right now. I mean, it consistently performs. And so, who knows? Who knows what reasoning looks like on these other models and stuff? Usually we see the dominoes fall pretty quickly. So I would suspect that something like the test you're talking about, Andy, I would suspect that it'll be accomplished one way or the other in the next probably 6 to 12 months, just based on the pattern and the speed of which we're going. What do you think, Beth?
I think a couple things. When we're looking at this kind of situation, we want to evaluate the field, right? So we're getting really excited about the hype, and I Rule the World is definitely doing what they're supposed to do, I think, and creating the conversation. But if math is a test of higher level reasoning, Google's program, Google's 2 large language models combined scored the silver medal score for the Math Olympiad, right? That's a different company and a different LLM situation, but seemingly in the field that we're looking at is making those same level changes. The other thing on a more skeptical level is that people have been saying that OpenAI is slipping, that they have not released something, right? And there's are they losing money? Is this a bad bet now? So we also look at the motivation of the company for releasing something that then drives hype up again. There's also reporting that there was an OpenAI staff meeting, they did a demo for the staff, and that occurred in terms of timing, that occurred before the hype started. Right. The reason that we pay attention to Johnny Apples is that if you look at the things that he's leaked, he tends to have access to that kind of thing. So it's less about access and more about, if you look back over time, these people seem to be talking about, seem to know what they're talking about. Right. They make cryptic comments before, and then it comes out, whether the timing is exact, whether it was on Tuesday or they push it to Thursday or whatever that is, or it's just not safe. Right. And so it's ready. It's amazing. And the answer is still no, for whatever reason that is. I think that's important in AI literacy and being able to understand what's happening in this moment, to not just look at the direct message, but the context in which that message is coming.
I 1000% agree. And I would say that hype or not, I agree with the idea. We've always said that whatever we're talking about today is not what's actually happening inside the walls of any of these major companies. They're months and months and months ahead of us, right? That would make sense. So does a GPT-5, GPT-X, GPT Next, whatever it is, the next big thing, does it exist? 1000%, I believe it does. Has it gone through red teaming? 1000%. Is it possible that OpenAI wants to have a good relationship with the government and has been told in any uncertain terms that this is not a good idea before such a major election in the United States? Also, I believe 1000%. I just think there's a lot of factors at play here. I don't want to get in. I'm not a conspiracy theorist in the least bit, but I definitely think there's factors at play. And if this model has been shown to have the leap in ability from where we are. We've heard Sam talk about it, that it's better to give these things out in incremental phases. So maybe strawberry is an incremental step, getting to that reasoning, and maybe what's beyond that towards agents and agentic reasoning, things like that are there already, but it just doesn't make sense to deploy that. So are they slipping? I don't know. Are they, my goodness, I don't know if you guys heard the thunder or not, but that was loud. Are they slipping? I don't know. Are they withholding? That's my opinion. I think they're withholding. And just because Jimmy and Carl, you guys were cool enough to throw a prediction out there, my prediction is something big will be announced this week. I think there's enough there. I think there's enough swirling around. This is August. It's not that far off of other patterns that OpenAI have had. They have said specifically that they're not going to use dev days to make big announcements, which means we're not waiting for an October 1st. I think something happens this week. So much so that we've actually, I have all the shows ready for next week, and we've purposely not put those shows into the grinder to go out on LinkedIn, and because we may move something around. So take that as it is. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe nothing will happen. This happens too, but it makes for a good conversation along the way. Let's talk really quick about what we have coming up the rest of this week, because we do have those set in place, unless something crazy happens this week. And then sometimes we move things around. But tomorrow we have a really good conversation coming up about the cost of using LLMs. And is that going to zero? This is not just us saying this. We've heard Rachel Wood from the AI Exchange talk about this. What essentially happens as we watch these models get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to use? What happens is it races towards zero. Does that mean that now everybody has access, or no? Is there still other problems that go along with that? So that's tomorrow's conversation. Wednesday, we will hit the news, and whatever is going on this week, we will talk about up until that point. Thursday, new AI business plan for the small and medium enterprise businesses, businesses that are typically less than 1,000 employees. What's that new plan? What does it mean? How do you approach and look at AI? We get a lot of conversations going on outside with our other jobs and things like that, where this comes up quite a bit. And we hear companies say, I know I need to move on this, but I don't quite know where to go or what the next step would be. And so we're going to talk about that, what we think is our best advice based on all our professional experience as we've been working as consultants in the AI space, and what we've been telling companies, these SMEs like this, on how they should do. So that's on Thursday. And then finally on Friday, something super cool that Jimmy brought to us, because we've been using Opus Clip, and by we, I mean really Jimmy has been using Opus Clip on the back end of this show. And they announced something in an alpha or a beta called Clip Anything. We do not have access to it, but there's been some 1 hour long better end this soon. 1 hour long boom presentations on it. I should have timed that better. About it, and so we can reasonably see what it's going to do. And so obviously we want to talk about that. It's not quite a tool review because we can't put our hands on it, but we can see what's coming, and it's really, really exciting. So I'm looking forward to doing that on Friday. That's it. That's everything coming up this week. Do you have anything, Jimmy, real quick?
I just wanted to thank Jen for getting my theming today.
Yes. That's awesome. That's well done. I didn't pick up on that at all. So yeah.
And the logo behind Carl's head, even though maybe it looks like a strawberry, it's actually not. It's his chair.
No, definitely not. Definitely not a strawberry. Hey, one thing I want to point out too is, hey, it could be announced this week, but remember, with every single AI thing, we won't be getting it. None of us will be getting it. We're putting on stupid wait lists. Oh, and at least it's OpenAI, which is, if it's a Google thing, I know I won't be getting this for months and months and months. And one more thing, the last thing I want to point out, whatever the reasoning is, can it power a bot to take up my recycling? That's literally it. And we can end on that.
I love it. You got anything, Andy?
I just wanted to tease Carl with, look up MIT EES, just announced over the weekend. It's the estimate, extrapolate, and situate algorithm that allows a robot to learn how to do things, interrupting itself when it makes mistakes, and it's a self-taught reasoner. So it's all on the same theme, but yes, it's going to be able to take out your garbage.
That's one of our topics for next week. So hold on to that because that is coming. That potentially will be next Monday's show. It's in the hopper. It's ready to go. We're just waiting to press go on that. So yes, we do have a very cool AI robot show. And it is no mistake that the thumbnail is a humanoid robot literally taking out recycling. So you guys will see all of that next week as we get around to that. Okay, we're going to wrap this one up. Hey, it might be a crazy week this week. You guys should keep coming back and checking out and hanging out with us live because as it unfolds, we'll be talking about it. And if nothing unfolds, we still have 1,000 great AI topics to talk about all the way. So it's great conversations. Come join us. If you want to check out anything we've done in the past, you can go to thedailyishow.com. I mentioned the newsletter. If you want to get into those deeper conversations, you need to go sign up for that newsletter because that's where that's happening. Yes, we talk about a lot on the show, but there's a lot happening outside of the show as well in our sort of areas. And so we want to be able to have ways to share that with you. So if you want to be on the inside, if you want to be in the know, you need to go check out the newsletter. It's absolutely free and it goes out once a week on Sunday mornings. So there you go. All right, guys, have a great day. I'm going to go see what's going on with this Florida thunderstorm. Until then, glad I didn't lose power. See you guys. Bye.
Aloha.